Hey, what's up, Glenn? Welcome to episode 46 of American Advocates. There's a lot to discuss today. I want to cover the top story being, of course, the fact that Pete Hegseth has announced the Pentagon will be requesting $200 billion from Congress to continually fund this Israel-Iran war now. Of course, we can just go ahead and chalk all of that money as going right towards Israel. You'll always find, you'll literally always find people saying that Israel only gets $3.3 billion a year from the United States. But then you look at everything that America does for Israel, and then you understand it's a whole hell of a lot more than that. So I'll cover that. I'll cover the problems with that too, because the bottom line is it's not going to pass. Congress is not going to just grant that to the Pentagon. So that'll be the top story. But I also want to get into a couple of other issues. More issues going on with our oil were reported today. There's some stories coming out about that. We're now at risk of losing our petrodollars, so I want to discuss that. And then, of course, I want to discuss not only the reemergence of Bibi Netanyahu, but also what he said today as he reemerged and delivered a speech and made statements, as well as the topic of boots on the ground. I'm going to go over the poll that I had posted on my community tabs page on my YouTube account here, read some of your comments like I promised I would, cover the poll results, discuss boots on the ground, and in what capacity we're likely to see that, because it looks like, as usual, I've been nothing but correct in my predictions when it comes to what the outcome of this war is going to be. It looks like boots on the ground is inevitable. I also want to get right into a problem that I had on X, actually. This was late last night at around 11 p.m. I made a tweet in regards to Donald Trump posting on his True Social a post about Israel, addressing the fact that Israel once again didn't defer their actions to America first, as they should. We, of course, being the primary superpower of the world, and of course also being the country that is by far the only reason why Israel continues to exist as a country and even has the level of success that it has in the Middle East. It's because of us. Yet for some reason we find ourselves always acting as this doormat slash big brother to Israel, where it's essentially we'll do whatever it takes to defend Israel no matter what they do. And we did see, I covered this actually yet last night on last night's episode 45 when it came to Israel striking the South Pars field in Iran. It was a gas field in Iran that they struck, angering Iran and causing Iran to lash out in a multitude of strikes in the Qatar region and Saudi Arabia. I covered that actually last night. Of course, I covered that before Trump made his True Social statement, or at least I hadn't seen it. But he did say on his True Social, he said, Israel, out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, Israel, out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, has violently lashed out at a major facility known as South Pars gas field in Iran. A relatively small section of the whole has been hit. The United States knew nothing about this particular attack, and the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it, nor did it have any idea that it was going to happen. Unfortunately, Iran did not know this or any of the pertinent facts pertaining to the South Pars attack, and unjustifiably and unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's LNG gas facility. No more attacks will be made by Israel pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field unless Iran unwisely decides to attack a very innocent, in this case, Qatar, in which instance the United States of America, with or without the help or consent of Israel, will massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field at an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. So Trump addressed Israel with this, and he basically scolded Israel on his True Social over this. In my opinion, this is all just for show. The way I read into this is very likely at this point the U.S. and Israel are working together, and there's only really two possibilities, in all honesty. Both are actually pretty likely. The first possibility is that both these countries knew this was going to be an attack on Iran, and they plotted this, and then, of course, it went awry, and now Trump is kind of throwing Israel under the bus as a result to save face as the president of the United States. with midterms coming up this year. I actually think it's probably a little bit more likely, though. The second possible outcome is Israel is acting without any deference to the United States. And truthfully, I've discussed this at length before. When it comes to this Middle East war now, Israel has bet the entire house on total annihilation of Iran and complete success in the Middle East, because Israel sees the writing on the wall when it comes to their level of popularity in the United States. The under 40 crowd will no longer tolerate Israel in the future here in America. We're done with them as a nation. We're done supporting them as a nation. And my generation and below, when you get to Gen Z, especially even more so actually, will ensure, in all honesty, as we take power in this country, that we have nothing to do with Israel. We don't like dealing with the Middle East at all. Millennials certainly have Middle East fatigue, and Gen Zers certainly have Middle East fatigue, as well as Israel fatigue. And Israel knows this. The government of Israel knows this. And they understand that they're in this position right now as a nation where they still do need the United States, at least, perhaps, if not to be able to survive outright, they need the United States in order to fulfill their actual goal in the Middle East, which, of course, is regional hegemony and the greater Israel nation. Because at the best case scenario, if America pulled back all support from Israel, maybe they could defend their borders, right? Maybe they could defend their borders. Maybe they could remain sovereign as a nation, but they certainly wouldn't be able to destroy entire countries like Iran without the U.S. supporting them. And their goal is to destroy entire countries like Iran. And we've discussed this before on this channel as well. This war is for one purpose, for Israel. This is Israel first. This is all about Israel's goal. And it doesn't really, honestly, fuck Americans. Fuck you goyish Americans, you goyim. You will work and you will pay your taxes and you will fund this war to help Israel. That's what this is all about. This does not benefit us in any other way. It's not about China. In fact, in some ways, China might wind up benefiting from this in the long run. And I'll cover that a little bit later, because everyone's always saying and insisting Trump is playing 5D chess, and this was actually about hurting China, and Israel's our greatest ally anyway. Now, that's, of course, if you're a low IQ boomer fucking retard, do you buy into that slop? But thankfully, if that's you, you're about to hit the deceased line, and this country is going to be taken over by far younger, better-looking, smarter people, like myself. Of course, I probably won't find myself in a position of power, but the bottom line and the main overarching point of all of that is to say, these days are coming to an end, and Israel knows it. So they have to act now. And they've essentially, by doing this, by dragging us back into another war, they know this is the final straw for my generation and Gen Z. They understand that. Even some Gen Xers now are turning on Israel. And marginally even, I showed a poll where even about 10% of boomers, miraculously, boomers, yes, about 10% of them now actually view Israel unfavorably. So they understood that this was going to be unpopular with America, especially the future generations of America, meaning that they know they won't be able to count on us in the future now because of this war. But essentially, the strategy here is they assumed that that was already going to be the case. They assumed that it didn't really matter. We were going to age into power and turn our backs on them anyway. So they may as well burn the bridge down entirely in exchange for getting us into the Middle East one more time to take out Iran, which is by far their greatest threat in the Middle East as it stands. And if we can destroy Iran, Israel will, over the course of decades, of course, it will still take time to fulfill their goal, but over the course of the coming decades, if Iran's knocked out of power and weakened, they will be able to fulfill their greater Israel nation. And if they do that, then it won't really matter what America thinks about them. They'll be able to truly not just stand on their own 2 feet and maybe defend themselves, but they'll actually be able to act entirely as a new emerging superpower in the world with a lot of control. And so this is their gamble, and that's why I think it's the most likely outcome that what's happening right now is being done, of course, on purpose. And it's all a pattern with Israel. They do this all the time. You read about the history of their warmongering tactics, and you understand. Israel loves nothing more, it seems, to agree to ceasefires and treaties, regional treaties, the Abrahamic Accords, temporary ceasefires, and then within days, hours, minutes, weeks, or months, they break it, they launch rockets, they stir the hornet's nest of Muslims up once again, and then once they're struck back, they cry to us, and we must now come in and save them, right? This is what they count on. And so by striking the South Pars gas field in Iran, essentially this ensures that Iran remains hostile, remains angry beyond belief, and that Iran will now strike back, which they did, of course, and they struck Qatar and Saudi Arabia, some of our other Middle East allies. by doing this, of course, this ensures, or at least increases the odds of America staying involved in the Middle East, because the longer we're involved, the more Israel benefits from this. So that's what I think was the most likely outcome here, and why Israel continually does this, seemingly without any deference to the United States, which is what would be proper in this situation, of course, because, again, the United States, without us, Israel is nothing. They are literally nothing. They do not even exist without us back in 1948. They do not survive without us up until recently, where you can maybe argue they could stand on their own now and at least defend their sovereignty. And they certainly do not conquer countries without us. And they know it, and they need us involved. And so Trump called them out, and I think that's what was the most likely outcome here. Now, I also think it's more likely than ever that Israel will agree, like this article says here, according to AP News printed today. Israel says it will hold off on striking key Iranian natural gas field as war rattles energy markets. And that is what happened when Israel did this, and when Iran struck back, we saw oil futures and Brent crude oil futures skyrocket. We saw one of them hitting 119 a barrel temporarily. Now, of course, today it's back down to where we kind of saw it hovering for the past couple of weeks. I think Brent crude closed at around 102 to 103, and oil futures right now, especially here domestically, I think is somewhere around 94. So it's been kind of hovering at that mark, and it did go back down today, but this AP News article says, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, Israel pledged to refrain from more strikes on a key Iranian gas field after Iran intensified attacks Thursday on oil and natural gas facilities around the Gulf, raising the stakes in a war that has sent shockwaves through energy markets and the global economy. Global fuel supplies were already under pressure because of Iran's stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz, a strategic waterway through which a fifth of the world's oil is transported. The Islamic Republic's retaliation for Israel's attack on its South Pars gas field sent fuel prices soaring even higher and risked drawing Iran's Arab neighbors directly into the conflict. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said late Thursday that, at the request of President Donald Trump, Israel will hold off on any further attacks on the offshore gas field. So they've agreed. Now, of course, Israel argued with President Donald Trump on social media. Trump, of course, posted that Truth Social saying, we had no knowledge Israel was going to do this, and Trump scolded them. Israel actually fired back, though, and even said, that's not true, basically, and America had intel that we were going to make these strikes. We discussed it. So who to believe here is now really the question. And it doesn't really matter. The underlying reasoning in all of this is, and what I'm really trying to say here, this is another temporary agreement. Do we ever take Israel at their word anymore? Sadly, yes, but we're fools for doing so. And the bottom line is, and the main point in all of this is, they've agreed to this now because America is obviously going to continue fighting in this Middle East war that is literally, it's not been asked for by Americans at all, right? It's an unpopular war, but America, our government, our representatives, they don't give a flying motherfuck about us. We will stay in the Middle East and serve Israel. That's what we're here to do, apparently. And so we're going to keep fighting this war for now, and as long as we do, Israel will behave itself. But the second, apparently, it seems, Israel gets wind or gets any sort of notion that we may be looking for an exit, you can bet your ass Israel will do something else like this once again to stir up the hornet's nest and ensure that we continue to stay involved and we continue to sacrifice our blood and our treasure for their goal. I can guarantee that. Before I move on, I want to say right now, like the stream if you haven't already. You can do that by double tapping on your phone screen. It does truly help the stream perform well in the algorithm. If you're watching on the computer, look for that thumbs up button and click on it. Also, be sure to subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this if you haven't already. Hey, the Waits Experience, appreciate you being back. Howard Clegg, the friendly neighborhood boomer of American Advocates, good to see you back as well. You're one of the good ones, if I remember right. And Lifeguard, hello Lifeguard. I definitely have Israel fatigue and Iran fatigue and Saudi fatigue, Sunni fatigue, Allahu fatigue. Yeah, we all have fatigue. Here we are, and it really just continues to be the top stories pretty much every single day. And I'm hyper focused on it too because it's just this should not sit well with you if you're an American. This war should not sit well with you at all. And the more the time goes on, and the more stuff comes out about it, well, like what we saw with Joe Kent, what we're seeing with Tucker Carlson, how we're seeing the Israeli lobbies here in America even act about this, right? Everything that's coming out about this should continue to unsettle you even more and drive the point home even more that here in the United States, we do seem to be occupied by a foreign government. Nobody wants this war. Americans in general find this war highly unfavorable, and pretty much every poll I look at shows the percentage of favorability at 26%. But here we are nonetheless. And there's so much I'm going to point out today, and I'm in a really pissy mood today because I've been fixing my sleep schedule, but it's been all over the place, and so I don't even have the patience. You think I've been bad already on prior episodes when it comes to just being brazen and speaking my mind? It's going to get real bad today because I don't even have the temperament to hold back at all. And so, like I even stated, with this war, we're now seeing Israel striking these fields, the oil market's going crazy. Trump doing the discourtesy, and militarily from a strategical standpoint, I guess it makes sense. This is how he explained it with the Japanese, the newly elected Japanese woman prime minister, when he was asked a question by a Japanese reporter why he didn't call his allies to notify them before they struck Tehran. He, of course, said they want the element of surprise. If you spread the word globally that you're about to strike, it ruins your element of surprise, which does make sense objectively speaking. But on the flip side of the coin here, I've discussed the problem that this poses, which is, of course, diplomatically speaking, what we're now doing in the Middle East, honestly, is stirring up this hornet's nest that's affecting everyone. And we did so without any real care. And the real reason why we did that, truthfully, again, is because of fucking Israel. We are sycophants in this country for Israel. They're not God's chosen people, and they're very similar to Muslims, right? The more you look into their culture, the more you understand kosher, halal, what's the fucking difference? Like, these people they're not really, to me, they become more and more the same, right? And they both are cursed with each other to fight these wars endlessly. We should have no involvement, but here we are, and because we're involved, because we ignore the Monroe Doctrine, because we ignore the wisdom of our founding fathers who cautioned against us doing what we're doing now and meddling in overseas affairs, foreign affairs overseas, because we just can't help ourselves, and because fucking Christians in this goddamn country can't fucking read their Bible properly, and they think what we're doing is actually serving God by serving his people. They can't even read their Bible properly. They can't. And the problem is, here's the real problem. They read their Bible, they just don't know how to study their fucking Bible. And that's the real fucking problem, because Trump is surrounded by a bunch of idiotic Christians. I can't even, there's some words you can't even say on YouTube. He's surrounded by fucking idiotic bimbo bitch Christian women pastors who literally think it's our job to bless Israel, a country that was created in 1948. And Trump, of course, knows nothing about the Bible. He's a perhaps God-inspired man at times, but certainly not a Christian, doesn't even pretend to study the Bible. So he listens to these stupid fucking female pastors who tell him it's his job to bless Israel and to be a Zionist. And so he just goes, oh, well, if that'll get me to heaven, then we'll serve Israel at any cost. I don't care about them. This was Trump, by the way. We struck Tehran. Well, what are we on now? Day 21? We struck Tehran, and Trump knows. Trump's not that stupid. Trump knew this would hurt him. And he even said it. He had to make the statement, I don't care about the polls. And he doesn't. He doesn't care about the polls. When it comes to rising gas costs, what was his response to that? It was, if they go up, they go up. You stupid fucking goyim. You pay your fucking increased gas costs. You think we care about you? And Kevin Hassett confirms that the other day. I played the clip yesterday. Well, a long drawn-out conflict in the Middle East really shouldn't hurt the American economy. Then he thinks about it live on air for a second and goes, well, it would hurt the American consumer, a.k.a. the everyday American. It would hurt the American consumer, but that's the last of our priorities. How does helping the American consumer, after all, serve Israel? Well, it doesn't. So we can deal with the rising costs now of our goods, because I've got news for you, and this is simple. I think everyone understands this inherently. When oil goes up, gas goes up. When gas goes up, transportation's more expensive. And when transportation becomes more expensive, guess what else becomes more expensive? Literally everything fucking else in this country, because energy going up makes cost of living worse. And that's the whole overarching problem. Trump has this phony ass religious board of peace, or whatever he wants to call it, and it's filled with evangelical scum. They're evangelical scum. Heretical, evangelical, dispensationalist scum. Learn to read your fucking Bible and study it. That's first and foremost. And I told you I was in a bad mood, and I don't have the patience to hold back today. I don't have the patience to be a good sewing circle Christian. So if it offends you, please dislike this stream and fucking block this channel and go fuck yourself. Okay? That's where I'm at with this. Now, fuel prices. We're at risk with the oil markets becoming the way that they are and getting worse. And with countries now starting to realize, they're taking a good look around, and they're realizing it seems like everyone in the world right now, and this goes for a lot of Americans. I'm not trying to shit on my fellow Americans, so I'll say that. It goes for a lot of Americans too. But most countries across the world seem to understand what the priorities right now are of the Trump administration and what the long-standing priorities have been of America in general for the last, 60, 70, 80 years. 70 years, let's say. And that's Israel. And they're recognizing that, right? We pulled a THAAD system out from Korea, which we had there to defend from a possible Chinese attack. China, our true global threat, the true global emerging threat, right? China. And we pulled a THAAD system out from the Indo-Pacific to defend Israel, right? So countries see these actions, and they go, they start to ask, does America have a military base in my country to defend my country from possible attack? Or is that military base now just in my country because it's in close proximity to Israel? So they start to ask very reasonable questions. Then they look at it and they go, Trump was willing to start a global conflict with global repercussions that will literally affect every country because of the Strait of Hormuz. And it actually, to be honest with you, this is how much of a selfish asshole Israel is, and America for being stupid enough to go along with it. The Strait of Hormuz does affect us, but it actually affects all of our allies overseas even more, right? So talk about making the most unpopular move imaginable with everybody else. Now our allies are suffering, and on this channel, I've said this before, fuck NATO. Most of our allies are just allies on paper, right? That's the truth. But even the ones that we should be cozying up with, even the ones that I said 2 months ago that I thought we should ally with more, like Argentina, El Salvador, Japan and Italy mainly. These countries, they're not really supporting us on this. And Trump is goading them along, and we saw the Japanese prime minister today, and she's all smiles, and she's very charming and polite, soft-spoken lady. Maybe she's agreeing to a little bit more after meeting Trump in person, it looks like, but they don't like this. And countries now are rightfully starting to explore other options when it comes to oil. So, South Korea. This is from the Korea Economic Daily, and this is the lengths that I go to do research, because this certainly is not an article that you'll see being covered on Fox News or any of our media sources at this point, because the idea of that is scary and they don't want you to know this. So this is from the Korea Economic Daily, and it says, South Korea weighs Russian crude as Hormuz disruption drains stockpiles. The country's refiners are exploring alternative supplies and preparing deep export cuts as Seoul secures additional barrels from the UAE. And so what we're starting to see now, this was apparently going to hurt China, right? This was going to hurt our enemies, and Trump's playing 5D chess. Well, in the grand scheme of things, this could actually help them, and it could actually make things even worse for us. Because like I just stated, countries are rightfully starting to really question what America truly stands for and just how trustworthy our alliances are with our allies. If they make a deal with us, why is that deal being made, and will we uphold it? Will we act in not just our best interest first and foremost, as we should and oftentimes don't, but will we also act in an interest that at least benefits our allies as well? And rightfully, I believe this conflict is starting to call all of that into question. Objectively speaking, they're right to question that. And who's sitting on a lot of oil that they can start selling? Well, Russia. I actually think I saw news that Trump lifted sanctions off of Russia, because Trump also recognizes the problem here now too. So this is a massive problem, and our petrodollar has already been being challenged by other countries. BRICS was formed to stand up to the United States, and what better way for BRICS to launch itself and propel itself even higher than during this kind of a conflict, which is just going to be a nightmare overall for the entire world, in all honesty. China was already trying to circumvent our petrodollar, and they've even gotten, I believe it was Saudi Arabia at one point, to agree to exchange oil for yuan currency. So they were already beginning to supersede our U.S. dollar, our petrodollar, and they were beginning to at least try to get other countries to accept the yuan currency for oil. Russia was playing along very well as well, because if you know the history of what we did to Russia during the Biden regime when Russia invaded Ukraine, you know that we used the fact that we have the global reserve currency, we used that to punish Russia. And Russia didn't like that. And then they realized they were too dependent on our US dollar and they needed to move away from it. One of the worst mistakes Biden made by far. Now, Trump making probably the worst mistake he'll make as president. Let's not jinx it. He could do a lot more fucking stupid things in the next almost 3 years to go still. This will just enhance that notion. So if we lose the petrodollar, well, kiss everything goodbye, right? I mean, truthfully, because we haven't been able to shift away from that fast enough. Trump did sign an act I heavily agree with called the Genius Act. It is all about embracing the future of cryptocurrency, but we're not there. We're just nowhere near that right now. So he's trying to set that up for the future. I do think that was actually one of the smartest things Trump has done. And he did that last year, but we're just not moving fast enough in that direction. We still do need the petrodollar, and now that's going to be called in question, and it's at risk because of this. And now we have to really take a step back and figure out how to handle this situation that we fucking created, totally unnecessarily so. Let's see what kind of comments are coming in right now. You paid $3.59 a gallon today, lifeguard? Yikes. Yeah. I expect it to go over $4 for most of the nation, in all honesty. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. Thelopside Donner says, America doesn't have $200 B. Where's that money coming? Oh, $200 billion. Where's the money coming from? Ordinary working people. Correct. Well, I'm going to break that down in a second here. I want to first cover Bibi Netanyahu's reemergence, as rumors were starting to break out that he's dead and that the Israeli government was using AI to create videos of him speaking. He did reemerge today. I think it's convincing enough to conclude he's not dead. But what he had to say when he reemerged today, that's what I want to cover next. And then I'm going to discuss Pete Hegseth talking about how the Pentagon will be requesting $200 billion from Congress. And the lopside Donner, yes, we're going to discuss where that money's coming from, because it should fucking piss you off if you're an American, bottom line. I'm sifting through the daily events looking for some kind of good news, and I don't think handing the keys of power to Gavin Newsom and Ocasio-Cortez is the solution. Yeah, well, I won't vote for, look, when it comes to voting for the president, there's no way I vote Democrat, obviously. I think in the short term, the strategy is a fair one to just not vote in the midterms and let Democrats take over, because they will slow this administration down and they will challenge this administration, which clearly is necessary at this point. But yeah, I'll never vote for a Democrat president. But the problem is this is sinking the GOP, right? And rightfully so. If the GOP is just going to continue to be neoconservatives, I want nothing to do with it. I want to watch them fail at that point. And that does mean more suffering for America, but the alternative, if the alternative is this, then there's no good choice. And if there's no good choice, I simply just won't vote. I'll just let the Democrats win because they deserve to. And I'll watch that with a smile, because at this point I want to watch this entire administration metaphorically burn to the ground. And I want to watch them suffer, politically speaking, of course, and be prosecuted outright. I want to watch them suffer consequences for failing Americans so hard the way that they've been doing, right? They haven't achieved hardly anything for us. This is not America first whatsoever. So, ban forever wars? Yeah, well, how do you ban a forever war? That's the problem, Tom. We have been on a wartime footing. Yes, we have. Unfortunately, it's inevitable. I think they can only kick the can down the street for so long before it blows up into something worse. That's where we're at. We are in a massive bubble. That is for sure. We're in a massive bubble, and it will a lot of that will be bursting in the future. That's for sure. By the way, guys, please be sure to like the stream by double tapping on your phone screen if you haven't already, or hit the thumbs up button if you can find it. It really helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. Jay Colpa says, God bless America. I agree with that always. They laugh at our country. No, they're not laughing at our country. Don hates Trumbo. They're definitely not laughing at us. What do you think about the U.S. Army veterans who served in Operation Desert Storm? I don't know. What am I supposed to think? You tell me. They say 200. That was literally before I was alive. They say 200 billion like it ain't shit. I know they do. I know Morgan Chandler. Yeah, they really do. I have to give him credit with Syria and Venezuela. Iran did agree with a stricter deal. I'm definite to attack, but Trump I don't know what you're saying. I kind of do, I guess. I voted for Trump, but I'm seriously starting to regret my decision, says Morgan Chandler. Yeah, I voted for Trump as well, and it's tough to say because there's, between the choices, I don't really know. At this point, I don't really know. I think the lesson to be learned here is it's better to just not vote and just let the country crumble until somebody worthwhile actually emerges, which will not be this year. There's nobody worth voting for this year. And it probably won't be in 2028 either. So let Democrats win. Let them fucking win. I don't give a shit. Like, if this is what we get under Republicans, I've experienced literally no benefit. I've actually experienced personal detriment time and time again over the past year under Trump, right? Like, I have not been served at all. So why would I continue to vote for the party that's not serving me, right? The party that doesn't even, I'm a white young man, right? When do you hear a politician go on a campaign trail and say something like, you know what we got to do? We got to start prioritizing our young white men in this country. Well, you don't hear that. So if they're not going to talk about me, fuck them. I won't vote for them. I don't owe them my vote. They can go fuck themselves. They can lose their election, and a Democrat can get in. Like, it really doesn't matter. What does it matter? Really, what does it matter at this point to vote Republican? What do you get in addition or in exchange for what you get with a Democrat? What do you get that's better? They used to even say it's the lesser of two evils, which is already not good enough, right? It's actually bullshit to vote for the lesser of two evils as well. It's like, how about we get to vote for something good? Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever thought about that? It's always the cucked little pussy boomers out there that are like, well, there's no fixing it, and you can't change it, so you may as well just vote for the lesser of two evils. It's like, you're just a fucking pussy. That's not how you change your country. But that's the generation that's they're just so gay. They're such pussies. They're such little bitches. They have the easiest times, right? They have it easier than their parents. They have it easier than their children. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're literally the dumbest people. Boomers are, generally speaking, with exceptions, boomers are the dumbest people you could ever hope to talk to. And they literally have no fighting spirit in them whatsoever, right? But they're the ones that will tell you, well, you got to vote Republican, because otherwise a Democrat will win. Okay? A Democrat wins then. What's your point? What are we getting when we vote Republican? This shit? We're getting a war? We're getting an increased cost of living? Sounds like a Democrat. So what's the fucking point? Anyways, I want to move on. This is Bibi Netanyahu here. We had some news coming out here. First of all, he reemerged today, right? He reemerged to prove that he's not dead, because there were rumors circulating all over social media that Bibi Netanyahu was dead, and all the videos we were seeing of him were, AI generated. So, hey, Bold as a Lion, welcome, man. Just saw you got in here. Good to have you back. Yeah, Tom, I'm not going to discuss what I do for work. I'm not trying to get not trying to share too many personal details. Not trying to share too many personal details on the internet, so I won't say exactly what I do, but, I'm trying to dig my way out now before it's too late. A war that my people will fight and yours won't. Run to Canada. Hey, Eddie, welcome. Welcome, man. Okay, so Bibi Netanyahu reemerged, right? And immediately, when he reemerged, we got some statements from Bibi Netanyahu today. And one of the statements that stuck out to me the most, right, is of the fact that he said there are many possibilities for a ground operation in regards to Iran. That was the most prominent thing that he said that stuck out to me. Now, the next most prominent thing that he said that stuck out to me was, once again, he's been discussing the Iranian regime change agenda, and he's been admitting it more and more steadily that it seems like, because this is the second time now where he said this, but he said it more outright today, that it looks like the Iran regime might not really change. We might not succeed in changing the Iranian regime, at least not in a satisfactory way to Israel. They, of course, want a very soft regime there that will pose no future threats to Israel. And I've explained this before, and I actually was criticized by literally the dumbest motherfucker in my chat you could ask for. I don't even remember his username, who said, well, it's not winning if they just hide and wait for us to leave. That's pathetic. And I said, no, that's winning. It's called we leave and they regain control, and all they had to do was just hide and wait it out for a year or two or however long we decide to stay, right? And that really is the standard of victory difference when it comes to Iran achieving victory versus the U.S. achieving victory in a foreign country in a foreign Middle East war. For us to achieve victory, the standard is so high. There's so much we have to accomplish. For them to achieve victory, they just need to survive at the end of the day. That's the only thing they need to pull off is survival. Because inevitably, time will wear us down. Money, blood, treasure, all that. And we'll decide it's not worth it. We'll leave, and they will regain control. And how do I know this? Because this has already played out fucking a dozen times in the Middle East. So it's not going to be any different. But he's admitted that. And then on top of it, he goes on to talk about the ground operations in Iran being how there are many possibilities. So how are we supposed to look at this? Well, the bottom line is we're supposed to look at this as Bibi Netanyahu starting to put the idea out there, right? And I've already been doing this on this channel because there's literally nobody smarter than me. The fucking MAGA cheerleaders out there that are literally delusional. They insist Trump is too smart. He won't put boots on the ground. There's no way. Some of them admit now, or they admitted last week even, that boots on the ground would be the final straw for them. Well, I'm okay with Trump doing this. We got to take the fight to them. Strikes from the air, strikes from our Navy. That's okay. But I won't support boots on the ground. We'll see that fucking brainwashed cult crowd of MAGA cheerleaders at this point. We'll see them easily be gaslit and willingly shift their own goalpost to whatever Trump tells them to when he ultimately winds up deciding to put boots on the ground. Something I predicted would happen and said was imminent on this channel. Understanding the terrain of Iran and understanding what kind of a shitstorm a war in the Middle East would stir up. It seems like, in all honesty, I don't know where the fuck Susie Wiles is, but somebody should send this to her and say, hey, I'll take the job. Of course, I expect to be paid in the millions because I'm clearly literally smarter than pretty much every other military strategist in the Trump administration. But all it takes is a little bit of historical knowledge and understanding when it comes to the Persian Empire and Iran being invaded in the past and how difficult that was for countries because of their mountainous terrain and how geopolitically it was a fucking suicide attempt on our part to go in and attack them when they could choke the Strait of Hormuz. Stuff I've been talking about like crazy right now that seems to have caught people like Pete Hegseth and Trump himself off guard, right? But here I am saying, well, boots on the ground's imminent because it's too mountainous. We can't keep striking them from the air and expect total victory. It's not going to work that way. They'll hide, they'll survive, and they'll win. So the ultimate end result has always been boots on the ground. Or it's Trump just pretending like we have victory, claiming it, and leaving, with the Iranian regime still surviving anyway, at least without us putting boots on the ground. Like, that's our two options at this point. There's really no in between. It's either boots on the ground or Trump has to pretend like we won and then he leaves. And Israel won't let us do that. They'll just stir up the region even more, right? So we're in it now. Right? That's why 2,500 Marines have already been sent on naval vessels to the Persian Gulf. They're already there. And now the Pentagon's already floated the idea of sending 5,000 more, right? Like, they're getting ready. These soldiers are being fed lobster dinners and steak. And if you're in the military or you had family in the military or you just study military history, you understand what a dinner like that means. It's essentially your last meal because you're going in. Right? And they've been feeding our troops these kind of dinners for the past 2 months now. So they've known that this was very likely going to be happening for a while, right? Now we have Bibi Netanyahu talking about it, saying, well, there's a lot of possibilities for ground operations. What would be the MAGA cult now? Well, maybe he was talking about IDF soldiers and Israeli soldiers. Fuck no. Are you fucking stupid? We're the Goyim. We shed our blood for Israel. They don't shed their blood for their country or for their... Why would they do that? We're the cattle. We're the useful cattle. We put our lives on the line for their agenda that won't benefit us at all. Don't you know how this works? Haven't you looked at the numbers of the Iraq 2003 war that Israel tricked us, well, partly with our own intelligence, which probably is compromised by Israel anyway, but Mossad, CIA tricked us into that Iraq war? Haven't you looked at the numbers? Thousands of U.S. soldiers dead. How many Israeli soldiers do you think died in that war? I'll give you a hint. It's less than one. Just Google just Google it. Just Google the numbers. It's all there. They don't shed blood for their agenda. That's what we do. We're the lesser than, right? This is their religion, by the way. My parents used to own a business, and they had a customer who was a Jew, and my dad actually asked him. I was just told this by my parents. My parents are boomers. They're semi-awake to the realities of this. They're so psyop, though, unfortunately, that even they will still say, well, I'm not an anti-Semite, and, I do support Israel. I think it's remarkable. So unfortunately, it's just how the boomers are. But you can talk with them about it, thankfully. And they told me their story, and they did say that. They said, you know what? We did ask him. He was a customer of ours, but way back in the day. And we asked him, do you really believe in the lesser than? And they said he looked at him and he said, yeah, I do believe that. This is what we're dealing with. So understand when Bibi Netanyahu's talking about boots on the ground, he is talking about our boots on the ground, not his. Okay? So that's important to understand. And after this came out, Yahoo shared this Reuters article saying, exclusive, the U.S. is weighing military reinforcements options as Iran war enters possible new phase. And you got to love the terminology for something like this, new phase. Now, if you listen to Trump and you believe everything your Lord and Savior Donald Trump says because you're a MAGA cultist with an 80 IQ and you're a sycophant and you jizz in your pants every time Trump talks, then you are convinced that we're on the verge of victory and this war is going to wrap up any second now. But here's an article calling it new phase. This is an exclusive article. They're calling it a new phase. What does that mean? Well, they're just wrapping it up. Are they? This article goes on to say, Washington, March 8th, President Donald Trump's administration is considering deploying thousands. We already have 2,500 there, and I'd heard the rumors already of 5,000 more going. This article is now confirming it even more, deploying thousands of U.S. troops to reinforce its operation in the Middle East as the U.S. military prepares for possible next steps in its campaign against Iran, said a U.S. official and 3 people familiar with the matter. The deployments could help provide Trump with additional options as he weighs expanding U.S. operations with the Iran war well into its 3rd week. This is how you know it's gone on too long, by the way. I don't even know what day we're on right now. I think we're on day 21. So 3 weeks in officially. And over there, of course, it's day 22 technically, so over 3 weeks. Those options include securing safe passage for oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, a mission that would be accomplished primarily through air and naval forces, the sources said. But securing... I love this. This article, bear in mind, was written today, right? But you guys are smart enough, some of you, to be loyally tuning into this channel now the entire time. But securing the strait could also mean deploying U.S. troops to Iran's shoreline. Oh my God, it's only as if I've been saying that for 3 fucking weeks almost now. Wow. And I've been called an idiot by people in the chat that literally never questioned Donald Trump. And they literally say, no, that won't happen. We don't need to, that's just not going to happen. You don't know what you're talking. This guy who lives in his car is talking to me about geostrategical strategy and military operations. Okay, why should I believe you? Do you have a college degree even? Okay, I think Trump knows what he's doing. You just have too small of a mind. You can't see the 5D chess that my Lord and Savior Trump is playing. Only Trump and me are smart enough to see it. I don't know why you would say that boots on the ground would be necessary there. These fucking morons, by the way, can't point out Iran to you on a map, let alone tell you what the terrain is like, let alone tell you how many people make up the total Iranian regime, let alone tell you how many mountains there are, where the Strait of Hormuz is, what it looks like. They can't tell you anything, right? But they're told by their Lord and Savior Trump that it's going to be all okay. And we already won, pretty much. Meanwhile, I'm the one saying that. I'm the one saying, listen, Iran has access to cheap drone production facilities that they've buried in their mountains, so it's impervious to airstrikes somewhat. And even if you can break through the mountains to strike some of them, you can't strike them all down. There's too many, right? Iran's been preparing for this now for a long time. And the drones are cheap, $600. $600 drones taking out entire oil tanker ships. This is how they choke the Strait of Hormuz. That's why the story about the mines being laid in the Strait of Hormuz, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. They don't need the mines. They have $600 drones that they're producing at quick paces in the safety of their mountains, right? And then they just send a drone out. And we can't stop those. We can't stop those drones from what? From fighter jets above? No. From our naval vessels? Maybe. Maybe somehow. Maybe. Not all of them, though. So what's the next step? Just do yourself a favor and look at what the Strait of Hormuz looks like from a first-person view. Mountainous. It's ridiculous. So boots on the ground, like I've been saying on this channel, is imminent for that reason alone. Strait of Hormuz is the artery of the old world when it comes to trade. And we fucked it up by striking Tehran and by basically being tricked by Israel into striking Tehran. And now, if we don't fix it, it's a diplomatic nightmare for Trump. And Iran has vowed no matter what we decide to do in that region, whether we pull out now or stay there, they will keep choking it. That's their promise. So this is what this is now. And that's why boots on the ground seems so imminent. And I've been saying it. Glenn knows. He says, there it is. Yeah, exactly. The cattle, they're outraged. How could a guy like me be so right? But here I am. I'm just vindicated daily. The Trump administration has also discussed options to send ground forces to Iran's Karg Island, the hub for 90% of Iran's oil exports, the 3 people familiar with the matter, and 3 U.S. officials said. Now, technically, objectively again, that would be a smart strategy, but boots on the ground is political poison. You have to understand this. And because this would actually be somewhat smart for Trump to do, this is the opportunity where MAGA cheerleaders will once again shift the goalpost that is their values. Mine remain consistent. And this is why I'm not MAGA. I can vote for Trump, sure. I'm socially and fiscally conservative, absolutely. But what I believe is what I believe, and it doesn't change yesterday, today, or tomorrow. MAGA has to change because they're part of a cult. They cannot question Donald Trump. So everything he does is perfect 5D chess that we just clearly can't see. So what he tells them is good automatically. And if you question him, you're a traitor, right? So he'll tell them this is what's happening, and they'll shift their goalposts, and they'll say, well, it's boots on the ground, and I did say initially I wouldn't support that, but it's only on the island. That doesn't really count because we have complete control of the island now, and they can't really stop us. They don't really have an air force to attack our soldiers on the island. So it's boots on the ground, but it's just on the island, and it's going to help end the war quicker. That's what they'll say. Guaranteed. Save that. Save that as a clip. Come back to it. You know, just don't come back to it when you got Kleenex and lotion out on your nightstand. Don't watch me under those circumstances. I know it's probably exciting for the audience that does watch me to see how right I am all the time. So under the right circumstances, when the news breaks, that's when you come back to this and you rewatch this and you go, wow, that guy was right again. I can't believe it. But because they will move that goalpost, that's a guarantee. So, and I did want to point that out. Now, actually, before I move on, I'm going to discuss the poll that I put up on my community tabs page, asking people who see my channel whether or not they support boots on the ground. And I did promise to read some of the top comments under there. So we're going to do that before we move on to, of course, the final story, which is Pete Hegseth talking about the Pentagon asking for $200 billion. But before we do that, be sure to subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this. Make sure post notifications are turned on when you do. And by the way, you got to like the stream. You got to double tap your phone screen or find the thumbs up and click on it. It helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. And truthfully, it's the least you cheapskates could do. I mean, let's be real. You guys are useless if you don't like the stream or continue to chat in the chat, subscribe to my channel and tune in daily. Like, it's really the least you could do. So that's all I'm really asking here. Just do that, okay? Do that now. But I'll take a look at some chats, and then we'll take a look at the poll. We'll take a look at me poll that I put up on my page. I see Charles Platts here. My father is 83 years old and doesn't support Israel. That's awesome. What a based grandpa. Or that's a father. Well, to me, that would be a super grandpa, but that's cool, man. My father's 83, yeah. You know what's funny is my grandma's the same way, actually. She's like in her late 80s now. And I was reminded by my mother the other day that when I was a kid, this sounded awful too, I remember. And my mom's always been mad at her for this, but my grandma's like a hardcore Catholic 88-year-old, and she's literally like, the Holocaust wasn't real. It's all she's like, it's all made up. Hilarious. I was just reminded of that too because I haven't really seen my grandma in a long time, but I was reminded of that, and I was like, "That's fucking funny. That's some funny shit." I forgot all about that. I didn't even remember that we had somebody in the family like that. So there are some surprisingly ridiculous older people out there. Is the whole point of that story. But for the most part, you know how the boomers are about Israel. This isn't about boomers. It's about bone spurs. And what is bone spurs? What generation is he, Dave Thomas? Bold. What do you think? I don't know what you guys. I don't know what you're talking about there. My brother was fed steak and lobster before he went to Iraq. He said it sucked. Yeah, I saw the soldiers kind of joking about that, where they're like, it's an okay meal, but it's not like a fancy restaurant version of it. What are you drinking? Says Eddie. Just water, brother. Just some water. It's tough. It's tough talking and monologuing like I do without your voice drying out. And then my tongue gets dry, and then I'll say stuff with like a TH or an S on it, and I have like no saliva in my mouth. And so it's like mouth. And then people are like, wow, this guy has a lisp too? Wow, why would I ever listen? Why would I ever listen to this guy? And it's like, no, you don't. I don't have a lisp, I promise. My mouth gets dry because talking for 30, 40, 50 minutes straight without sipping water is not something most people have ever had to do. So they just don't understand. That's why I have water now. Yo, what's this about Trump going to prison if the war ends? I've only seen a headline, haven't read anything yet. Dial up. Yeah, I think that's pretty unlikely, but the Democrats, the thing is, I think Trump does think that he's spared. I think he's like safer from Democrat retaliation after he's out of office. Very likely because he'll pardon himself and a lot of his administration. And I think he's very naive to assume that. Because the Republicans always make this mistake. They assume for some reason that Democrats will play by their principles. And it's like, no. Trump will literally, we saw this, by the way. We've seen this. This will be repeated. I actually can almost guarantee this and predict this as well. Trump in the Biden regime years suffered under Biden. They wanted him in prison. And Trump was like, but I never went after Hillary Clinton. Why are you, why would you do this to me? I was nice to Hillary. And it's like, you're just a fucking fool. And then now we're seeing this here where are people from the Obama regime administration or the Biden administration, are they experiencing justice at the hands of Pam Bondi? Are they being investigated and indicted and prosecuted and imprisoned? No. And when Trump gets out of office again, with a war like this happening, it's very likely a Democrat regains control. He might even get impeached if the Democrats get control of Senate and Congress this year. But regardless, in 2028, so let's say a Democrat president wins, they're coming after Trump. If he's not passed away by then from old age, because that's also likely. We're talking about a guy who's old now. He could die any second, really. But if he's still alive, the Democrat voter base will want that. And he'll scream and shout about it again. I didn't go after the Biden administration officials, and now they're coming after. It's a witch hunt. And it's going to be like, yeah, buddy. Sorry, I don't feel bad for you this time. What did you do for me again? We'll be discussing all of that in the context of like $6 a gallon gas, cost of living still going up, every major promise not occurring. So it's like, you liked the H-1B visas, you liked the Chinese students being here, you promised a lower cost of living, you promised mass deportations, and we only got 230,000 in your first year when we really need that number to be over 1 million at least. You promised no new wars, and we went and shed blood in the Middle East for Israel and spent Pete Hegseth asking for 200 billion. You want sympathy then? Like that's the future I could see for Trump. And they will come after him. And he'll pardon himself, but they'll ignore it. Why would they listen to that? They'll literally say, you can't pardon yourself, is what they'll say. And he'll say, but Biden didn't. Like, nope, you can't pardon yourself. And they'll say, yeah, that means Biden's pardons are undone too. You know what will be funny about that? Biden will be dead. He has severe prostate cancer. He's terminal. So it won't matter. They don't ever think about that. Hey, Katie the Mage is in here. Katie the Mage is an old school viewer. She says, does the Pentagon want 200, it's 200 billion, Katie, not million, but billion, to reverse engineer alien spacecraft, or do they need it for something else? I'm not sure about that one. Maybe when Trump decides to release the alien files, we'll figure that out. Pro-Palestinians are the same as pro-Nazis. Same agenda, same ideology, same processes. None of those people give a shit about any of us. I don't know exactly who you're talking about, Morgan Chandler, but I think I just agree at this point. Joe Kent cares, apparently. Well, we'll see. Joe Kent could still listen. What Joe Kent did was important. It helps force the narrative that we're discussing on this channel more on the everyday voter. It forces people like my parents, for instance, to accept the reality a little bit better. Boomers now have to deal with it. You see Cat Turd is losing his mind on X. He's like, this Joe Kent guy, he's a traitor leaker. It's like, okay, Cat Turd, what did you do for the country again? Because Joe Kent went on, 11 tours in the Middle East as a Green Beret, lost his wife in the war. So he's a Gold Star husband. What did you do again, Cat Turd? Or for that matter, anybody attacking Joe Kent and his reputation and how he's a traitor to the country? And they're calling him that off of evidence, off of a claim that there's no evidence for right now. And so, Joe Kent cares. I'll be gracious and I'll point out all that good stuff. And then I will also say he's a politician. So you always need to remember that when it comes to him. He's a politician. And this was certainly a futuristic move on his part that could wind up being a very smart one for him. So always remember that. Always remember that. Does he care? Maybe. Is he a politician? Definitely. Stephen Hefra says, you have no idea what you are talking about. Little boy, you got hold on. I want to really savor this moment. Now let me read it in the voice I imagine somebody like this pussy sounding like. You have no idea what you are talking about, little boy. The benefit of demolishing Iranian regime is of utmost importance for the future of the world democracy. Read a book and educate your short-sighted mind. Thank you for that, Stephen Heffer. I really appreciate it. Give me some book recommendations. Texas or bust. If there was a draft today and you got drafted to be the boots on the ground in Iran, would you take advantage of a Bone Spurs loophole? No, but first of all, I'm above the normal draft age. I still fall well within the emergency draft age because if things get bad enough, they'll draft up to age 39. So I would still fall under that. That's how you would know things are getting bad. But 18 to 26 is the typical age. I'm above that. So I'm spared from any initial draft. I remember having to register for the draft. I believe that was under Obama. And I was like, I actually almost wound up joining the military, but I actually decided against it because Obama was president. And I thought to myself, fuck that. That's my commander in chief. No way. So, but I'm above that. But I used to be a competitive power lifter and I tore my pec. So I can tell you this right now. And I say this sincerely. I would have potential problems because of that. So I would definitely lean on that, somewhat rightfully so, because if I'm going to have a drill sergeant screaming at me and fucking, burning me, and I'm doing hundreds of, drop to the floor, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to be like, sir, my pec's about to tear off my bone again. That would be a problem, actually. So I would use that, honestly, and see what that got me. Because I certainly wouldn't want to fight and die for Israel. I'll say that, too. But I genuinely, I have a surgically repaired pec from being an absolute monster on the bench back in the day. So, that's my thing. Bone Spurs is legendarily me. Bill Clinton was a draft dodger. How did Bill? Let's look that up real fast. Because if I remember right, Bill Clinton was a draft dodger too, and he got out of Vietnam. I want to know what his excuse was. But the president, a lot of these fucking old guys that are really keen on sending us to war, it's like, oh, you're a draft dodger, or like you're Lindsey Graham and you're literally gay, so you're not married and you have no kids or grandkids, right? Lindsey Graham should have grandchildren that would be forcing him to think otherwise about war, but he doesn't have that. So Lindsey Graham's like, oh, I just think what President Donald Trump is doing is so amazing. I mean, my God, this is the best thing ever. He's lowering your taxes and killing all the right people. We need more of this. I mean, honestly, we should help Israel and Lebanon next. It's like, oh, okay. Well, that makes sense that you have that kind of outlook on war because you literally never procreated. So why would you care? Yeah, so Clinton, okay. Bill Clinton avoided the Vietnam War draft during a combination of student deferments while at Oxford, briefly joining an ROTC program and ultimately drawing a high number in the 1969 draft lottery, which made him unlikely to be called. He was a staunch opponent of the war on moral grounds and aimed to preserve his political future while avoiding service. student deferments in 68 and 69. After graduating Georgetown, he maintained 1A status, but was allowed to delay service due to his Rhodes Scholar status at Oxford. Okay. Wow. I wonder if the average everyday American could get that level. That's crazy. Clinton failed to follow through with the joining of the ROTC, returning to Oxford for his second year instead, deciding to risk the draft to maintain his political viability. Clinton's draft deferment. Yeah. Bone Spurs is funnier, though. Definitely. $200 billion. Get the fuck out, says Glenn. Yeah, exactly. We're gonna cover that. Trust me. You should be outraged. So read a book about 1953. Yeah, exactly. I bet you Steven doesn't know what 1953 is or why that's significant for Iran, though. He clearly doesn't understand international affairs. Oh, wait, hang on. Wait, this is Steven. He clearly doesn't understand international affairs and how it impacts the U.S. and the world. I mean, obviously, my Lord and Savior Donald Trump is doing this to hurt China. That's what's happening here. This is about hurting China. And that's worth it. It's definitely not about Israel. I used to be just like you, but I woke up calling someone a little boy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Steven is the swine. Well, we allow the swine so long as they don't spam. Steven is the definition of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Correct. And I'll tell you what, I'm the example of the best case scenario. The more I do this, the more I realize there's so much more to learn. But then you get the lecturers in the chat like Steven, who's like, you clearly have just no clue at all. I mean, honestly, you should be listening to me. It's like, all right, well, you go live on your YouTube then, and you discuss geopolitics and the war. How about you do that? Where's your YouTube channel? I listen, and the thing for Steven is like, I've been right. Like, go back and watch what I've been saying for the past 3 weeks. I've been right about so much. What's one thing I got wrong in this war? I thought we were going to have a massive strike in the Middle East last weekend. I saw CENTCOM posting the videos of the B-2 bombers, and Bibi Netanyahu has been softening his rhetoric on this war. He did it again today with the regime change comment and how it doesn't seem likely. And I thought for sure, or somewhat for sure, that we would do a massive strike on Iran so that Trump could use the optics of that to claim victory and start pulling out because of the midterms, which, by the way, makes sense, and I wish that would have happened. Unfortunately, I was wrong. I was wrong about that one. But, I called Iran striking resources in the middle of the week. I called that two or 3 days ago now, and I said, it's very obvious what Trump does strategically. He waits until the weekend to carry out the big strikes because then the markets are closed and they can't react in real time, which gives him time to create another narrative about how the war is winding down on Monday so that the markets can calm down again. And I said Iran is actually a lot smarter than we gave them credit for, so I wouldn't put it past them to start striking resource-rich areas, which is what they did yesterday, in order to impact the markets during the week and hurt Trump even more. That happened, right? I've been predicting boots on the ground. That seems increasingly more imminent. So, you just haven't watched my stuff. But I'm literally the smartest person on YouTube, and it's not even close. Way smarter than people named Steven. Steven deserves it's okay, buddy. It's not okay. It's not okay. That's why I'm not giving him a pat on the head. Draft starts with age 20. Oh, I thought it was 18. Okay, starts at 20. Runs up through 25. Once they're all drafted, they get that's right. You are right, actually, dial up. I remember that now. Yes. 20 through 25, then 18 and 19. And then in emergencies, they start going above it. Yes. All the way up to 39, possibly, if things get really bad. Oh, it's 45? I thought it was 39. 45? My state has no limit on emergency. Interesting. Okay. Maybe it has to deal with what state I grew up in or where I currently live. I don't know. Did you watch Tucker Carlson's interview with Joe Kent? I did. The impression is a French kiss. Hell yeah. Or chef's kiss, rather, you mean. But the military-industrial complex needs you to accept slop. Yeah, true. Steven's just arguing with people. He's like, no, don't you get it? This war was an imminent war it's been an imminent threat for 47 years. They've been 2 years away from a nuke for the last 47 years. Don't you guys understand? God. Hey, sometimes you just can't help them, you know? Sometimes you just can't help people like that. It's been an imminent threat. It's been an imminent threat. Like I've explained, I'm going to start telling the police officers, God forbid, hopefully I'm never in another. I haven't been in a car accident in like 9 years now, I think. A long time. But if I ever get in one, I'm going to say, officer, I've been driving now for like 15 years. It's been an imminent car wreck. Imminent car wreck. In fact, officer, this is not a car wreck. This is a traffic conflict. And it's been imminent for the last 15 years. Don't you understand? And it's a traffic conflict, officer. Please don't put it down as an automobile accident. That will hurt my insurance. Please put it down as a traffic conflict and make sure they know this was imminent for 15 years. That's what I'm going to start doing. All right. Real fast, let's go over this poll that I put up. So I put up this poll now almost 2 weeks ago on my page here. It received hundreds of votes, and I straight up asked the question, do you support boots on the ground in Iran? And then I, of course, stated, leave a comment down below to possibly be featured in an upcoming episode of American Advocates. Well, that poll got some results. Only 24% of the voters said yes, they support boots on the ground in Iran. 76% said absolutely not. And we have some top comments here. Umpire29 says, I think the Kurds have taken that upon themselves. Now that's an interesting one because obviously the Kurds refused. And we know that now with the benefit of being 2 weeks in the future from when he wrote that. Yes, the United States was really hoping that the Kurds would be the meat shield idiots that they've been in the past for us and that we could use them selfishly to stir up a civil war in Iran the way we've kind of used them in other countries in the past. But the Kurds actually developed a backbone, and they said, you know what? We never get what we want when we work with you, so we're going to decline. So no Kurds. No Kurds. They're not fighting for us. It will have to be our soldiers. Likewise, of course, like I've stated, Israel will never fight with us with their soldiers unless they absolutely have to. They would prefer we sacrifice our young men. And here, you know what's fucked up about this? I've been meaning to say this for a while now, too. Really think about this. What did Trump and Pete Hegseth do last year when they were just getting started in this second term in this administration? Remember what they did to the military? They purged it of the filth, and they doubled down on they don't want dual citizens. I think is one of the things they have been pushing for. They're trying to they're trying to purge it, and they're trying to create a cleaner military. And by default, of course, that means a cleaner military is more comprised of American Christian men. And then if you really want to break it down and say it the way it is, white American Christian men. Certainly not those transgender freaks. They're gone. Hegseth wants nothing to do with them. And rightfully so, by the way. But really think about just the timing of that. They come in and they do that just in time to send all of the white Christian men overseas to die for Israel. Isn't that wonderful? Really think about it. Isn't that absolutely just wonderful how that's playing out now? Interesting. The Kurds won't fight and die for us. NATO doesn't want to fight and die for Israel, right? They're too smart for that. Japan doesn't want to. South Korea doesn't want to. Even Italy, which was the one good country in NATO, Giorgia Meloni, supporting Trump in some ways where most of NATO wouldn't. They don't want to either. Keir Starmer said 2 days ago they don't want to. So here we are. Here we are. And our young Christian men can go now die overseas for Israel. A country that practices, by the way, Judaism, not Christianity. They don't even believe in Jesus. They actually spit at Christians and at our churches when they walk by them. Somebody responded to Umpire and says, that's not enough. Iran is huge. Yeah, and that wasn't the point. The Kurds would have been a distraction, but they declined. So then another comment under this post where, again, 76% of people said absolutely no boots on the ground. Only 24% approve of it. Special ops, yes. So some people, Crasher Extreme says special ops, yes. That, again, will be a goalpost shift, of course, right? That's going to be people literally saying, well, it's a special operation and it needs to happen. So that'll be another goalpost shift right there. It'll be, well, it's just Karg Island. It's just an island operation, so it doesn't really count. And it's just special ops. They're trained for this. The casualties will be way lower. Now, the funny part about it, too, is, of course, just ask someone if they say they support boots on the ground. Say, What's your maximum threshold for the amount of troops our soldiers dying over there? What's the maximum number for you? What is it? Because for me, it's 0, and that's already failed. We're at 13, right? So I'm already, for me, this is a failure, right? But ask them outright. How many U.S. soldiers are you okay with losing in this Middle East war? That's what I would say. Stop everything. Dial up 5583. I think this might be his first time paying a tariff on this channel. And he says, read this for the Bible readers. 1 Peter 5:8. I'll pull it up right now for you. Why not? Appreciate the tariff, by the way. Dial up. Long time chatter in here. First time tariff payer, I think. I might be wrong on that, but I think that's your first time. I really appreciate that. Thank you. If only we could force idiots and swine in our chat like Steven to pay tariffs as well. Truthfully, he should be the one that has to pay for spreading his crap, right? It's a shame it's always the cool chatters like Dial Up that has to do that. All right, let's see. Yeah, you got to love how Google now, I Google 1 Peter 5:8, and Google's like, well, this isn't the Bible verse, but here's an AI overview of what the Bible verse is saying. It's like, fuck you. I just want the Bible verse. All right. Hopefully you're okay with New International Version. I'm kind of a snob. Oh, you know what? New King James Version. Let's do it. 1 Peter 5:8 says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Yep, very familiar with that. Not familiar with the actual verse, but you hear that verse all the time, and it's completely true. The world is the throne of Satan, and he does walk about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Absolutely true. Thank you again for the super chat dial-up. Seriously, really appreciate it. Okay, a couple more comments here. Let Israel handle it, says Drew Fay. Now, I agree with that, but we all know that's not realistic. Ross M3838 says, around the straits, they are needed, but nowhere else. So he knows, right? He's saying what I've been predicting. And it's true, unfortunately. Objectively, it's true. But it's nevertheless frustrating because we didn't need to put ourselves in this position, yet here we are. So, dial up. Great comment, says Bold as a Lion. Yeah, absolutely. It was. Thank you for that verse, seriously. Especially when you look at what is Israel's, what is their military operation? Operation Roaring Lion, is it? Right? Yeah, Bold as a Lion says it. He said, and how interesting is it that Israel calls this Operation Roaring Lion? Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah, awesome. Yes, to stabilize the region from their efforts. See, so some people really are supporting. James Stetzer, 650, commented, to stabilize the region from their efforts in developing their nuclear program, to use it for the leverage in destroying the world. There are crazy people there, I know. We have crazy Democrats in this country, too. Twisted Wisdom 4277 said, Trump did a good thing by taking out that monster. Now it's time for the people of Iran to take control. I don't want to see our troops on the ground. A few bombs are okay. A few airstrikes, sure. No year-long campaign. Yikes. Some of these comments are not aging well, you know? And that just, unfortunately, looks like it's going to be playing out in the opposite way. The Iranian people don't really seem to be showing any initiative anymore in overturning their own regime. They're expecting us to do that for them. And why wouldn't they? That's what we've tried to do in the past, so they know it's probably only a matter of time. Some of the Iranian people, according to our ground intelligence reports, are actually siding with their own Iranian regime. So it's not even that good. Daniel Delgado says, only if Trump sends his youngest son. We all know that won't happen. Janie Zepeda says, let the neighboring countries provide boots on the ground. U.S. the firepower. I halfway agree with that. I have been posing that question, where's NATO? We got the answer to that, by the way. They're not interested. Frank Stello says, after paving the way with severe airstrikes, we should be able to do this safely. So he's in support of it, too. KSP Hits says, we have done more than enough. We have given 75% of our Navy and Air Force. We shall not give up our children. Let Israel and the other Middle Eastern countries put boots on the ground while we support them. 2009 Lifeguards commented on here. Let's read his. He says, I don't support boots on the ground. I don't support a protracted, ever-escalating effort. I don't like unconditional surrender. Agreed. Unconditional surrender is a ridiculous term to hold a country to. And he says, that seems to be an excuse to continue indefinitely because they're too ideological to surrender. Absolutely. Lifeguard, it sounds like you've been listening to this cool YouTube channel. It's called American Advocates. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it sounds like you've been listening to that channel. But you're absolutely right. Although I do agree that Iran needed a correction to pay for their past aggression and atrocities, I can see that it is a political and popular loser. Yes. Especially for Trump detractors that hate everything he does. Yes. The fragmenting of the Republican Party as a result of his action makes the DNC dance a little jig. I'm afraid that if the Democrat Party takes control of Congress and the presidency one more time, they will take actions that will create a one-party state. That is a risk, yes. There are rhino Republicans who will be happy to assist and forever play the role of do-nothing dissenters. It is the most frightening time I've seen in America in my lifetime. Thank you for that comment, Lifeguard. And absolutely, I pretty much agree with almost all of that. So, very good comment, seriously. Keystone Liberty on here, he said he's another one. I have not seen him in my chat in a while now, but he's been a long-time viewer here. So he says, no future presidential candidate in the future, regardless of party affiliation, can claim to be America first or America only unless that particular candidate is willing, able, and ready to do the following. 1. Refuse AIPAC funding for their campaigns, no exceptions. 2. Rallies the Congress and the Senate to introduce a foreign policy restriction amendment that forbids the United States from having any contact with any nation in the Middle East, including Israel, since the Middle East has been proven to be an internal loss cause and a high-risk liability for the United States in general. 3. There must be a candidate who is willing, able, committed, and ready to work with Congress and the Senate to draft legislation to introduce a bill for there to be a vote on a national immigration, visa, refuge, and asylum moratorium to last 20 years, and in that same time period ban financial remittances. 4. Repeal the Immigration Act of 1990 that President George H.W. Bush signed into law that has allowed third world Indian workers to take jobs away from Americans in the high-tech sector market, and any and all existing and remaining workers that benefited from the H-1B visa program at the expense of American workers must be deported from the United States with no exceptions. Then, when all of that has been accomplished, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, then you got a little theatrical there, or a little LARPing going on there, Keystone Liberty, but okay. Then you can take with confidence when a presidential candidate says they want to put America first and only America first and keep it that way 100, American flag. I'm going to like that comment. Definitely appreciate that. And very sound, very accurate. Pretty much all of my beliefs. So another great one from Keystone Liberty and a good one from Lifeguard as well. So that's people's thought process. And honestly, 24% of people supporting boots on the ground on my poll, on my small channel that received a couple hundred votes, does still echo the overall favorability of this war being roughly around 26%. So I feel like it's actually somewhat consistent with the overall opinion of Americans when it comes to this war. You see those polls about how 94% of MAGA support the war and Trump, right? But that's, of course, them just factoring in the most hardcore cultists at this point. That's the reality of that. Now, moving on. Here's the reality. Before we move on real fast, I'm going to play this 25-second clip here. This is Bibi Netanyahu, and he's addressing this because he knows this is a problem, right? Bibi Netanyahu, he's not an idiot. He's paying attention to our politics, and he knows this is a problem. This has been a persistent message now, and it's getting worse with people like Joe Kent resigning. So he addresses the topic of Israel dragging the U.S. into war with Iran. This is what he had to say.
These opening remarks with one other fake news, and that is that Israel somehow dragged the U.S. into a conflict with Iran. Does anyone really think that someone can tell President Trump what to do? Come on. President Trump always makes his decisions on what he thinks is good for America, and may I add, I think what is also good for future generations. These opening remarks.
So,
one other fake news.
He addresses it, and he tries to essentially play into the ego of the MAGA voter base and Trump himself, of course, by saying, well, nobody can tell Trump what to do. That should be clear. That would have worked in 2017 when everybody loved every Republican or every young Republican and MAGA was more unified and Trump was avoiding wars. That would have probably worked back then, right? Now it doesn't, right? It's very clear now when you follow the currency. What I always say on the show, follow the money, and you see just how much of a difference in contributions Miriam Adelson, the Adelson family, has made to Donald Trump in his first term, $20 million only. In his second term, over $200 million last time I checked. Big difference. Massive difference. A 10x difference. Right? And that's really it. So yes, Trump is being told what to do. On multiple fronts. Jared Kushner is his brother-in-law. Jared Kushner, a Jew, is his brother-in-law, right? Marco Rubio, a former warmonger, is his Secretary of State. J.D. Vance, who's tied in with Peter Thiel, who owns Palantir, and all this Jewish money. J.D. Vance is his vice president, right? Kushner, by the way, was it turns out I believe he was one of the diplomats sent to Iran in the Middle East to try to obtain peace. Talk about a serious conflict of interest, right? But nevertheless, that's who was sent, with somebody else, I can't remember now. Then you have his religious board of nutjobs that are filled with evangelical dispensationalist women, right? It's an embarrassment in the Christian religion for a woman to be a pastor. The Bible prohibits it. Yet there they are, and they're in Trump's ear. Genesis 12 says, the Lord will bless those who bless Israel. You must serve Israel. And Trump with the narrative, well, yeah, I don't know if I'm heaven bound. I don't think I'm a good person. This is what old people always, by the way, this is just, I feel bad for Trump in this way, by the way, and I always will. Because he's not around good people who can actually spread the right gospel to him, unfortunately. And I do feel bad for him because this happened when every old person is questioning their life, like Trump is starting to do because he's that old. And they're starting to question the reality of where they're going to go after death, because you can live your young life a lot easier not thinking about that stuff. The concept of death starts to creep up on you more and more as you age. Trump's at that point. And I do feel bad hearing that. He's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to It's like, he's not around the right people. He's got fucking Zionist female pastors around him. Pastors. So I feel bad. I wish he was around better people, because he does deserve a chance to hear the gospel as he should. And he's clearly not getting that. But because he's thinking about it like that, and then he no doubt is getting that messaging from Zionist pastors, God blesses those who bless Israel. Well, you get the money from the Adelsons. You get the credit for the Middle East stuff with the Zionists and the Jewish friends that he has, and Jared Kushner, his brother-in-law, and then you have evangelical Zionists telling him that he'll be blessed. It's a no-brainer. Then on top of it, you add in the stick element. I made a video on this channel. It's not a lie. It wasn't a video. You should go check it out if you haven't already. People always say our politicians are bought, and that's really only true to an extent. I made a video discussing the element of the stick, not just the carrot, but the stick. And people think, well, Trump's impervious to the stick. Trump can only the carrot can work on Trump. I don't think that's true. And while I've been very open about the fact that I definitely, and I stand by this, I don't think Trump is going to ever be criminally implicated in the Epstein files. I think it should be very clear to most people what Epstein Island was, who Jeffrey Epstein was. I mean, he's photographed in an Israeli Defense Force sweater, and in his emails, it's very clear that he was working with intelligence communities like Mossad and CIA and MI6. And Epstein Island, people always, like with anything, like with 1930s Germany, like with any war, anything, any tragedy, people always focus on what happened, but not why it happened. It's the same for Epstein. People focus on what happened. Disgusting. Disgusting what happened. Sure. But because that's so emotionally overpowering, that's only what people focus on. They never focus on why Epstein Island was happening, why it existed. And all you have to do is look at the emails to understand. It was a blackmail campaign. Epstein Island was a blackmail operation for powerful, wealthy people. And Trump, everyone, and this is why I stand by this prediction that I made last year. I said Trump won't be criminally implicated on the island. We have more and more. We have Epstein victims come out on our news, our local news, cable news here in America, and say, no, Trump had no involvement. They said that live. So I feel vindicated in that. Bill Clinton, not that you can believe his word, he said the same thing. But the problem is, so many of Trump's friends, so many of the other world leaders, so many of our current politicians are in those files. Mike Johnson himself said, the problem with the Epstein Files Transparency Act and why it's a tragedy is because this will destroy our government institutions as we know it. And so if Epstein was working with Mossad and CIA as a double agent, I think it's likely, though I can't say for sure or prove it completely, that Israel has access to a lot of that incriminating material. So there is a stick element and there's a carrot element. The carrot is more of the reward. And all of that is happening all at once around Trump. The religious people telling him he'll be blessed for blessing Israel, and then his brother-in-law, Jared Kushner, playing a role, and then the stick element, right, and the carrot element. So it's all around him. And that's honestly the very likely what's happening here. So as far as Israel dragging U.S. into a war with Iran, yes, they did. And not only do we know that, not only can we surmise that and assume that, but we've actually been told that pretty much outright by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who literally stated that we got intel that Israel was going to strike Iran. So we realized we needed to strike first. Essentially, we were goaded into that region by Israel, who convinced us Iran was still a threat. So we move our Navy there, and we start flying Air Force, our Air Force over out that way. And then we say, well, because our Navy's now in your Gulf waters, our Navy's now at risk of your Navy, Iran. And we don't like that. It's like, well, we're sitting in their waters. Of course we're at risk of their Navy. We're on their home turf. So the logic's not even there first and foremost. But then we get the intel admitted to us by both Speaker Mike Johnson, Marco Rubio, and at one point Trump himself, who later went back to correct it and said, well, I decided it actually. But they say this. They literally said this. And they said, we got intel that Israel was going to strike first, right? Israel acting without deference to us, Big Brother, of course. They can't do any of this without us. But they lead the way. They just act so brashly, knowing that for whatever reason, the cucked boomer generation will support them no matter what. And our politicians are still predominantly boomers, including Trump himself. And this is how this played out. And they've said it, right? You can't, at this point, there are delusional fuckers out there that are so low IQ that Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, Speaker Mike Johnson, Speaker of our House, Republican House, GOP, and our president himself can say it, and they will still tell you, no, that's not true. No, that's not what happened here. Iran had nuclear warheads. That's what this was all about. That's what they say. Now we have Joe Kent coming out as well. The man who had pretty much access to endless intel and security information, working in the counterterrorism department, reporting directly to Tulsi Gabbard, head director of the National Intelligence Agency, and he's telling us the same thing, right? So how many more people need to come out and say it before somebody finally just accepts the fact that this is the reality of the situation? But Bibi Netanyahu knows it's political poison still, and they still need our support. So he's trying to cool it the best he can. And he knows for a fact this won't work on most people. Most people are not retarded enough to believe this, but it will work on some. And so that's what he says. Come on, do you really think we can trick Trump into this? Trump's untouchable. I mean, your leader is just amazing. He does what he wants when he wants, and we know that. And we love Trump for that. Shut the fuck up. Nobody believes you. Now, I want to move on to the top story of the day. Did I see Shadow Warfare's in my chat? Another good regular here. A super chat with biblical scripture is top tier rad. Yeah, 1 Peter 5:8, courtesy of Dial-Up, which I believe was his first super chat here. So we're celebrating that. And it's a great Bible verse because, as Bold as the Lion pointed out, Operation Roaring Lion is what Israel is calling this military escapade in the Middle East right now. Is Stephen Hefra still in here? What is he talking about? My God, this guy's going off on some sort of weird... What's he ranting about? I don't even know at this point. Stephen Hefra, just get your own show. Just go live on your YouTube channel, man. You think I'm going to sit here and read all of this? I appreciate the chats, but my God, man. You won't even debate my factual statements that are exposing your lack of knowledge and geopolitical expertise, loser. Hey, Stephen Hefra, not everyone believes that their eyes are lying to them. So you can type away all you want. I literally am just using my eyes. It's called just observation. I'm just observing. I'm just I'm using my ears to listen to people like Marco Rubio, Mike Johnson, President Trump, Bibi Netanyahu himself. So I listen, and then I do this thing called observing. And I watch. And then I do this other thing. This is the hard part now for people like Stephen. I analyze. And then I critically think about stuff, right? And I mean, I don't mean to brag, but you're talking to a 1600 ELO chess player. I can't say that's super. That is a good score actually, but it's not. Obviously, it's not anything special. I've had 1800 once, but I'm not a grandmaster. But I do like strategy. I always have ever since I was. I taught myself how to play chess. Risk Global. I'm a good I'm good at strategy. I'm decent. Ask Shadow Warfare. I played chess with him online before. I don't mean to embarrass the guy, but he only beat me once, and it was after I went 2 days in a row with only 3 hours of sleep total. I made a stupid mistake. Anyways, listen. I just observe. I critically think. I make predictions that stand the test of time on this channel more often than not, at least so far. And when I'm wrong, and I'm willing to admit it. And that's where we're at. So you can type all you want, and then you want to debate me. This is not the Stephen Hefra show. This is American Advocates, like I said. So go live on your YouTube, make some videos. You don't even. I'm aware you're probably a pimply fat fucker. You don't want to put your face on. I understand. Okay, like most people are not blessed with the good looks I have. They're a little conscious. They're like, oh, I don't want people to see what. You don't have to do that anymore, man. Get a program that allows you to type in what you want to say, and you can create an AI-generated news reporter or an image of a pretty woman to force simpy men to listen to what you have to say. That's how you succeed on YouTube now, anyways. So you can avoid all of that, and then you can start creating your own content. Since clearly, based off of your chats, you have a lot to say. Geopolitical implications. Korea and Iran demonstrating U.S. military power in Iran is also seen as a deterrent against other adversaries like Russia. Really? Russia, the country that we now speculate is giving away a lot of intel to Iran to help them fight us? Russia, the country that Vladimir Putin is the president of, who has a lot of angst against us? Russia, China, the two countries that are allied with Iran, BRICS, B-R-I-C, BRICS. Now they just realize they can use Iran as the ultimate great proxy against America to keep us weak. By the way, what do you think China? Do you think China would love nothing more than for us to go to war with Iran? Because I think they would. Because what happens if we go to another Middle East war again that lasts for years and cost us, I don't know, another $6 trillion? Do you think our economy can hold up to that? And what's China's plan, by the way, for becoming the world's top superpower? Is it an invasion here in America? No, they're not fucking stupid enough to invade America. They know nobody can invade us. You can watch videos about why strategically it makes no sense for them to do that. They understand that. We're kind of impervious to ground force invasion, right? So how's China planning on becoming the world's superpower and beating us economically? Now, what could we possibly do, do you think, to weaken our own country enough to make China the superpower? Could it be another endless Middle East war full of casualties and cost? Could that, I don't know, maybe harm our economy to the point of where China now can surpass us, do you think? Or is that just impossible? Okay? So you can read your books and you can look at it from some sort of a stand, but with the Strait of Hormuz lockdown and the fact that 80% of the oil passes through there and 50% of that goes to Asia, don't you understand we're hurting China too? They can wait it out. They can wait that out, and they're also allied with Russia. Russia is going to capitalize off the oil. So it's you, my friend, unfortunately, that don't know what you're talking about. But feel free to go make your own content and prove to the world how smart you are. Who blocked you? Yeah, Tom, debate me, bro. This is not a debate channel. Do I look like Andrew Wilson to you? Bold as a lion. So funny how he wants to be debated, but he won't answer he can't. He can't answer any questions. He's somebody who thinks he's smarter than what he is. Dunning-Kruger, like you said, right? So he's a lecturer, is what it's called. He's a patronizer and a lecturer. Somebody got deported, Glenn. I appreciate that. I'm sure they deserved it. Howard Clegg, hey, you're still here. Says keyboard warriors got to be right all the time. They live for it, man. It is what it is. Let's get into the top story, guys. You can't tag him, Glenn. Who? Oh, Stephen Hefra. Yeah. I'll listen. If Steven, listen, Steven shouldn't be blocking the moderator, but if he does, I can just ban him anyway if I need to. And I'm not going to. I mean, he hasn't, I don't think he's spammed enough to where I like he's typing down his beliefs, so I can respect that still, even if I think he's a moron. But either way, I mostly listen, says Howard. Oh yeah, no worries, man. Yeah, I still appreciate you being here, so thank you. Let's get into the top story today, because this is the one that I wanted to discuss. This is the one that should really aggravate you the most if you're an American, for a whole host of different reasons, right? And that is, of course, the top story being that Hegseth discussed in a recent speech, recent statements being made about how the Pentagon will now be requesting $200 billion, possibly, he says, $200 billion from Congress for the Iran war. Well, he clarified today in this article I saw from Axios 7 hours ago now. He also went on to say that number could move. And I doubt that he means it would get lower, right? And I want to break this down because there's so many different reasons this should piss you off as an American. First and foremost being $200 billion is ludicrous. Now, I posted this on my X earlier today. Let me go to that right now. You should follow me on X, by the way, at American_Advo, ADVO. Follow me there. X is engagement based, so it's hard to build X from scratch. It's hard to build up your X account from scratch. So I could really use the engagement. You should absolutely follow me there. But I posted this. This is a website now that you guys should check out if you get the time. It is called the IranCostTicker.com. And when you click on it, it gives you a live update of just how much this war is costing us per day, factoring in that it's costing us $1 billion or more per day, by the way. Now, we're currently sitting at $25,247,715,000 in cost. That's how much this war has cost us so far. Remembering, of course, that we've been there now for, 22 days total? So, if the Pentagon, this is the first question you need to ask yourself. This is the kind of question that people like Stephen Heffra never asks, because he doesn't really care. He just thinks it's all wonderful. But this is the question you should ask. If the Pentagon is prepared to ask Congress for at least, it seems, at least $200 billion, and we now understand that 22 days in is already costing us $25 billion, how many days then are they prepared to be engaged in this Middle East war? And once again, for people like Steven, again, too, who clearly this is their first time watching, another prediction I made, I was one of the first ones out there to make this comparison because I hated the COVID time so much that I instantly recognized the rhetoric being reused. Remember 14 days to flatten the curve? Remember that? And how long did that go on for? Now, of course, I'm pure-blooded. I never took any of that shit. I suffered through it like a man. I suffered the discrimination, At the time, I was in a really liberal area, and they were talking about vaccine passports and bullshit. I never wore those fucking face diapers. I never bothered to stand 6 feet apart. I sneezed on 96-year-old grandmas that probably passed away from COVID because of it, and I slept like a baby. But it was 14 days to flatten that curve, and then all of a sudden it was like, no, actually, we need much longer. Then it was, we'll take these 2 shots. Then it was, well, you need a booster now. Then it was, you need another booster and another. And then one thing led to another 2 years later, right? So instantly you recognize that with Trump as he's trying to gaslight his voter base because he knows this is political poison. Well, I think it'll just be about 4 to 5 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks. I mean, we hit them hard. We already won. We already won. They can't come back from this. I mean, really, we won. It could end any day now, but it could also go on for a while. It's over soon, but it could also go on for 100 days. But we won. It's over. We're declaring it's pretty much victory. Well, how long are they prepared to go if they need $200 billion from Congress? That's the first question you should ask. The answer, of course, is that would likely mean we're prepared to go for 100 days, maybe even longer than that. That gets us closer and closer to midterms. This is political poison, and I think it's obvious everyone should be expecting a blue wave in midterms at this point. But if this goes for 100 days, well, that certainly will guarantee a blue wave in midterms. And it certainly will guarantee an impeachment from President Trump, because at what point can Trump stop calling this an excursion, or be forced to stop calling it a conflict or excursion, and have to accept the reality of the fact that this is now a Middle East war again, of which he got no congressional approval to prosecute. He didn't get congressional approval to prosecute a war, but here we are. So that's another problem too. But even worse, when you get back to the article, it says Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed the Pentagon would ask. Oh, he confirmed it. Okay, see, I didn't even know that. So this is confirmed. This is not a possibility. This is confirmed. He confirmed the Pentagon would ask Congress for more money to wage war in Iran, though he said the reported 200 billion figure could move. Why this matters? It says a request on that scale would likely face stiff opposition from many Democrats. This was the next point I wanted to discuss. By the way, some Republicans too. And so this is the next biggest problem that they'll face. Congress, this has been stated before, and this is correct. This is really, really now the first war that America has waged and gotten involved with that is not overwhelmingly popular and supported by the American people, right? And that's what's so new about this. And that goes for politicians now as well. They see the writing on the wall. They understand, right? Trump may be beholden to Israel now and may be subservient to Bibi Netanyahu. And a lot of our congressmen have AIPAC funding behind them too, so we'd have to see how that plays out. It might overwhelmingly be supported by Congress for all we know. But I actually think the Democrats, they know better at this point. The Democrats know they cannot support this. They want to win 2026 and 2028. And the way to win future elections now is three things. Promise economic populism, something this Trump administration has completely forgotten about when it comes to winning elections, something the GOP's forgotten about. We were told by Kevin Hassett the other day that this long-term war, if this turns into a long-term war, it shouldn't hurt America, but maybe the American consumer, but that's the last of our priority. That's what Kevin Hassett said, part of the Trump administration in the economic sector of it, right? That's what he said. Last of our priority is the American consumer. You regular Americans, that's the last of our concerns right now. We're in a war, okay? We need to fulfill Israel's agenda in the Middle East. So the American consumer being hurt by that, that's the last of our priority. So they've forgotten. The Democrats haven't. And the Democrats will usher in socialism, of course, but that's going to sound popular. People will vote for that now. Zohran Mamdani went to New York City, and he hired snow shovelers in the city at $30 an hour, ironically requiring 2 forms of ID in order to get the job. And what happened? Props to him. Now, of course, Fox News ran a hit piece on it and said, well, we found these 5 people that were walking around the city with shovels, and they weren't shoveling anything, getting paid $30 an hour. And so this is what socialism does. And it's like, yeah, that's true, actually. You can't really avoid that, unfortunately, and they didn't really supervise the snow shovelers well enough, I guess. However, undeniably, what happened was New York City residents there, New York City, I don't know if you've ever been there. I've been there once. Very expensive, even back when I went many years ago. Can't imagine what it's like now. $30 an hour is actually not even great pay for New York City, but it is okay. So the ultimate result was, well, the snow got shoveled. Literally, it did, actually, and people got paid. And that's the kind of no-nonsense, common-sense shit that young people in America are looking for. And it came from a Democrat socialist Muslim. Meanwhile, the GOP, well, the American consumer is the last of our concerns. Okay, we're in a war right now for Israel. Like, how does the American consumer help Israel? They shouldn't even be spending money on products. They should be paying more taxes so we can send that money overseas to support Israel. Essentially, that's the messaging, right? So economic populism first and foremost. The Democrats, they understand this. They're going to run off that. Not only for midterms, because they'll cover the cost of this war. They'll discuss all of Trump's shortcomings with the economy, the housing market, cost of living, gas prices. That'll all be used by the Democrats, and rightfully so, unfortunately. So they'll run off that in 2026, but then especially in 2028, right? So that's first and foremost. Secondly, what do they need to run off of? Justice and Epstein files. Trump's second biggest failure now, because now we're in a war. That's his first. Epstein files. They're going to run off that. They're not stupid. They understand. And then third, what will they run off of? Well, they're going to run off of the wars, and they're going to run off of, well, to be honest with you, anti-Israel. I think they see the writing on the wall. And the weird fucked up dynamic of our politics is as follows. Republicans serve Israel no matter what, but American Jews vote 80% Democrat. So, and then the Democrats, they don't even like the Jews. Kamala Harris did not pick Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania. She picked Tim Walz, a fucking retard, instead. Why? Because Josh Shapiro's a Jew. Like, it's just so out there. But this is how it works in this country. That's first and foremost. And so the Democrats will figure that out, and they'll run off those three things: economic populism, Epstein, and no new wars combined with anti-Israel messaging. They'll do it shamelessly, and they'll win. And so when it comes to Congress, and when it comes to Pete Hegseth now saying the Pentagon's going to ask for $200 billion, understand something. The Democrats already understand now what the GOP has lost sight of. They'll fight this. And when it comes to a budget and a spending bill package, you need more than just a 51 votes. You need more. You need the 60 vote. So you need Democrats. They're going to refuse, I think. Many Democrats are bought out by AIPAC in Congress. Don't kid yourself. So there's definitely a reality where this flies through Congress because of that. But I think the Democrats will actually choose political future over past funding. I do think that. So what will happen? What will have to happen then? By the way, some Republicans will side and cross the aisle with the Democrats. Trump will, of course, promptly call them out for that. But that's what will happen. And so that will get held. That'll get held up in Congress, and it can't get held up. The Pentagon can't afford to wait on that. Israel needs our support and our money now. Damn it. So what will happen? Well, here's the answer to this. I don't think this article goes on to say this. Let me see. But I've been thinking about this all day. There's one way they get around this. There's one way they bypass the need for a supermajority vote, right? This is what will have to happen. Let me see if they say it. They do not say it. A reconciliation bill, right? Reconciliation. This is, and the Axios don't say this because they're not thinking about it like this yet, but this is how you have to think of this. What's a reconciliation when it comes to spending in a budget in Congress? Well, reconciliation is essentially, I believe, if I remember right, they get to do this once a year only. But the reconciliation is essentially, it only needs 51 votes. The tiebreaker vote could come from Vance, which would be really crazy. But the reconciliation is essentially, well, we need to reanalyze where all of ours, taxpayer money is going. And we need to reallocate it and use that more efficiently. So we're going to pull out from here and put in here instead. And that's the kind of, a reconciliation doesn't need the extra votes in Congress. It only needs 51. So the reconciliation is how I foresee the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, the Trump administration, and the Republican boomers in Congress getting this passed through. What does this mean? Well, by what I'm implying here is they will essentially say, let's pull your money, our money, out of the programs, the government programs that assist you, American Goyim. Let's pull that out so we can send it to the military and to Israel. We need $200 billion to help Israel. So let's pull the money out in a reconciliation. Let's pull it out of stuff that helps you and put it in towards the military for Israel's sake. That's what I foresee happening. I think that's very likely, by the way. And I even wrote that. Yeah, I wrote that on X. This is what we have to understand, and this goes to further the point. Understand something here, and this can't be argued with by anybody. Secretary Pete Hegseth is now saying the Pentagon wants $200 billion, and that number could change. It could wind up being much more that they ask for, right? And it could come in the form of a reconciliation, meaning they take our money, they tell us how we're going to use our money, which that's what it is. The government doesn't earn money. They take our money and decide how to use it. That's why we vote for them, a lot of our representatives. So they're going to, through reconciliation, use our money, take it away from our beneficial programs, any of them, and put it towards war in Israel. That's first and foremost. Secondly, understand something. They'll approve this. There will be enough support if they do it that way to get it passed, to get it approved, to get it pushed through, because Israel demands it. Meanwhile, do you remember what happened when Trump initially proposed the idea of a southern border wall? They said, literally, politicians, not just Democrat politicians, by the way, Republican ones as well. They said, a border wall, that's going to cost $17 billion probably, maybe more. We just can't afford that. We know it's about America's security, but do you understand how much $17 billion is? That will raise our debt ceiling to unacceptable levels. That would crash our economy. We cannot do a southern border wall for $17 billion. That's what we were told when Trump initially proposed a border wall. And I hope you remember that, because now they're asking for $200 billion to fight a Middle East war that only 26% of Americans want. and watch it get passed. And watch it not only get passed and approved, but watch it be approved through a reconciliation at our expense, at the expense of our government programs. That's my prediction, and that's what's going to happen. And the fact that they even have the gall, the fucking nerve to ask for $200 billion to continue fighting in a war we don't want as Americans, but the border wall, something that even some Democrats agree is a good thing. We were told $17 billion for that is too much money. Understand that. That's what we're dealing with as the American people right now. That's what everyone here should be pissed about, including retards in my chat like Steven. But no, oh, this is about geopolitics and blah, blah, blah. Shut up. It's gross. This is gross. That's really the bottom line here. This is gross. Yeah, and I see the chat here. Dial up says that's what's happening in 2009. It's all for greater Israel. It is. And you can see just what's prioritized. You can see what's prioritized here. We're an afterthought. We're just an afterthought. Kevin Hassett, the American consumer, last of our priorities, that proves it. Everything they're doing proves it. Losing the petrodollar will be the end. I covered that earlier, Lifeguard, and we are at risk of that more. South Korea, I think I might still have that article pulled up. Yeah. South Korea's government and refining industry are mulling imports of Russian crude oil while bracing for steep export cuts as they race to secure replacement supplies because of what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. This was courtesy of the Korea Economic Daily, so it's not something you'll see reported by any of our mainstream media, most likely, but it does say, it says South Korea is weighing Russian crude as Hormuz disruption drains their stockpiles. This is a reality that a lot of countries, like I stated earlier on, they're starting to question, analyze, think about, contemplate, because we just went in recklessly like this and disrupted everything. This could create a global recession. You have to remember that. And from an oil standpoint, you have the people out there that are like, well, the Strait of Hormuz doesn't really affect America that much. It's only about 5% for us. So it's really not our problem. It is our problem because of the petrodollar and because now we have fucked up oil for all of our allies and enemies. Oh, our enemies are going to suffer, so it's actually good. No, it's not good. The petrodollar is the problem. If we lose that, we have no fail-safe for that. Losing the petrodollar is going to hurt everyone. It won't. Yes, who will it hurt the most? Us. Steven says it's a few extra cents a gallon. That is the price for. You're just rage baiting. I think you're just a rage baiter. It's a small price for freedom. Are you really in here to remind us that freedom isn't free in the world for millions and safety of billions of countries and democracy? Yes, you know what, Stephen? You've convinced me. I actually foresee Iran will become the same shining beacon of freedom and Western values and democracy that Iraq currently is. You're so right. You're so right, dude. I don't know what I've been thinking this whole time. My God. I mean, all I had to do really was look at all the other Middle Eastern countries we went to war with 20 years ago and attempted all this regime change on. I should have just looked at that and I should have said, oh, man, you know what? We have been pretty much just establishing successful Western democracies in all these countries. Iran's just next. That's all. It's just a pattern. That's all that it is. Iran's just next. They should be celebrating. You're completely right, man. What was I thinking? We were 60-0, says Shadow Warfare. Oh, on the chess game. Well, you beat me once though. Remember, I was exhausted. I guess that's an excuse though. You played a good game. You have gotten a lot better at chess, Shadow Warfare. I'll say that. Although I haven't played you now in a long time. I don't have time for it, unfortunately, anymore. Oh, look, he's like, I was new at the time too, though. Sounds like an excuse. Yeah, Shadow Warfare says, Steven is right. You seem really scared because of all the facts he's been throwing at you. I am terrified. Facts are like the enemy to me, okay? Facts are the enemy. So unreal. Use your EBT money to fill our gas tanks so we can go to work. My gas tanks need filling up, Steven. Is Steven on EBT? Wouldn't be surprised. Dave Ramsey? Who's talking about? No. No, he's talking about. No. Maybe you should have an emergency fund so you are able to afford when high prices increase for the greater good. For the greater good. Oh, that's the other. Oh, that hits me right here, bro. The greater good. I forgot all about that. And I forgot my job being born in America is to ensure that other countries and their people benefit from our existence at my expense. I forgot, actually. I voted for Trump hoping that he would prioritize all of the other countries over America. And I voted for him hoping he would prioritize all the other people of the world over me. I'm just a silly, stupid white American, man. You're right, dude. You're so right. Not only is the Middle East a shining beacon of democracy now because of our Middle East war involvement over the last 20, 30 years, really, if you count Desert Storm. So Iran's just the last holdout, I guess, is what you're getting at here. And it's inevitable that we'll turn them into a free democracy. What a wonderful thing that will be. And this time it won't be like 1953 Iran that eventually led to late 1970s Iran, right? This time they'll maintain that too. What have I been thinking? And then on top of it, you are so right in regards to the fact that that's what our job is as Americans, to suffer for the well-being of everyone else in the world. Guys, I've had a complete change of heart here on this channel, and I think I'm going to change my name, my channel name. It's no longer American Advocates, because Steven is right, guys. From now on, it's America Last, everyone else first. That's the name of this channel, America Last, everyone else first. Because that's what it's all about, and that's what it means to be a good Christian, by the way. Being a good Christian means that you work your ass off for hours and hours a day, and you do your best to succeed, but you accept the fact that you're always going to come up short because you're always going to have all of your hard work be done in vain. You're going to labor and toil for nothing more than the benefit of people you'll never meet on the other side of the world. That's biblical. That's very biblical. And I've been a bad Christian and a bad American. That's my confession, honestly. My heart has been it was so hardened to the idea of Persians being liberated. I mean, I don't know how I could have been so selfish to say something like, I don't give a fuck about Persians. I don't know how I could have ever been that selfish. I pray I'm forgiven. All right, that's gonna do it for me, guys. I've covered all the news here. You should be pissed. Everyone who's reasonable, not full of white guilt, not full of American guilt. John Boy says, I'm used to being last. Not for long, though, John Boy. As us millennials and Gen Zers take power, we will prioritize Christian American nationalism, and we will ensure that this country rises up to the position it truly belongs as in the world. We are the world's hegemony, and we will remind all other nations of that reality when we finally get power and when the boomers are finally fucking dead. That day's coming, and it's only coming faster and faster as time goes on. It is inevitable. And once again, America will rise as the superpower it belongs as, and we will place Americans first. That will happen. Those days are coming. Don't take the black pill, says Glenn. Completely right. Never give up hope. This country can be saved. And it is inevitable. The boomers are losing power. Worst generation of all time, losing power. Although we have the good ones in here, like Howard Clegg, who he knows. Howard Clegg's one of the good ones. He goes, yeah, the boomers, they are what they are. Howard Clegg knows. He likes us youngins. He's here to support us. And we like people like Howard Clegg. I wish there were more like you. Have a nice evening, nice stream. Firm in your beliefs. Absolutely, Lifeguard. Always firm in my beliefs. Appreciate you guys, seriously. Thanks to my super chatter dial-up. Appreciate that. Appreciate all of it. You guys are great. Boomers are mostly, not yet they're not, but soon. Big booty Latinas can stay. Oh, I don't know about that dial-up. You might lose me there, man. We can look at them from afar. And by that I mean we can look at them from across the border. But they have to go too. Okay? We It should be easy to see the big booty Latinos from across the border if they really do have a big booty, but they got to go back across the border. They can't stay here. It is what it is, though. Dial up. I understand the sentiment. Trust me. Yeah, you guys have to get this fixed. I've seen it my whole life. We will, Howard. We will. Gen Z is. I'm a millennial. I'm close to Gen Z in age in the age gap. Only a few years off, but it's the Gen Z generation I think that will actually truly save America. So, but we will fix it, and I'll do my part even as a millennial to do that. We got to. It's the only place I ever plan on living. America is the greatest country in the world, even right now. There's no place I'd rather live. There's no place I'd rather call home. I love my country. We got to fix it. So, and it will happen. It's just we might have to go through a little bit of pain and suffering again over the next 4 to 6 years, sadly, but I think it's inevitable. The 2030s could either wind up being the best decade America has seen in centuries, or it could be the worst. But I'm going to do my best to make sure it's the best for all of you in the chat and for every American in general, even people like Steven. Even they deserve to benefit. The rains fall on the just and the unjust. All right, guys. No looping tonight, though, Glenn. I'm streaming right from YouTube, so there won't be any loop. Not streaming from Streamlabs. Appreciate all of you guys. Like I said, glory to America, the best country in the world by far. God bless the USA, and God bless all of you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like the stream right now before I go offline. Have a great rest of your evening. I'll see you guys here tomorrow on Friday, unless you actually have a life and you plan on having fun on Friday night. But honestly, you shouldn't do that because the money you'd spend on having fun tomorrow night should be going to Israel. So don't spend any money. Go back home, talk to no one, remain antisocial, and tune in to American Advocates tomorrow night to discuss more of the latest news. Until then, though, have a great rest of your evening. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. God bless.